This video is intended to describe a lightblade wand named Nymphaea. Joining me today will be my whimsical stick figure chakra map, which I'll be referencing quite a bit for visual guide reference cue to different stimulations of this entire composition. And first things first, this blade is very oceanic in nature. Hence, the wood actually was retrieved from the Oregon coast that had been tumbled by Mother Ocean for a very long time. So the oceanic theme here is very much a prevalent aspect of the foundational structure of this device, as well as the aquamarine, which of course I'll describe all in turn, but that's the big preface right away, is that it's a very oceanic construct. So starting off with the blade band scaffolding concept seen right here of the transmutation ratio, like so, igniting like so, going up this lateral band, up this handband underneath this lovely blue leather, to this quadrant right here, lateral band, to this section right here, basically makes a closed loop reactive circuit of that of the transmutation ratio, which I'll get into momentarily. Then, of course, this would be the primary blade band seen right here, which is the emanation designation focus of the energy for the broadband spectrum projection. And so the big idea why I discuss this before I get into the crystalline composition is that the fundamental scaffolding design is that of resembling vaguely a figure 8 of perpetual recirculated energetic momentum, seen like so, to work as a great way to govern and redirect the excess current of the entire energy in a closed loop circuit, particularly with all these extremely exotic minerals incorporated in the primary wire as a closed loop circuit to give the basically the backbone scaffolding of the energy to redirect is why I'll be discussing this mechanism first for the individual organs of this crystalline entity before the full dissertation is through. Okay, without further ado, I'll discuss the transmutation ratio as a great preface and foundation for the entire construct, seen right here, of hematite to be a fantastic iron-based mineral to ground all excess radial energy through the root chakra into the earth stars, into the earth for reprocessing, in tandem with smoky quartz to work as a subcapacitation of the same energetic pathway stimulation to take all excess negative energy and ground it firmly through the root chakra into the earth stars, into the earth for reprocessing. So the two together is what I traditionally employ to be the transmutation ratio, to quite simply transmute negativity into positivity by having such a very powerful, firm purification of excess energy to the root chakra into the earth stars, into the earth meridian matrix for reprocessing, which could be considered a consistency of energetic dialysis, of consistent transmutation, as well as it being a great contingency for very high yield frequencies to, of course, encourage the energy of the entire construct through the blade band seen right here to ground, most importantly, into the earth, to A, make the magic real, is a tangibility aspect of keeping it grounded into tangibility range, as well as being a lovely segment to further purify any negativity into positivity as well. So that's why, of course, they make for a great preliminary discussion for the foundational construct of the blade band ignition sequence seen like so. And like I mentioned before, of course, this exact ignition sequence of smoke quartz and hematite is now concealed on a blade band from this section to this quadrant to this lateral band and recirculated like so. So this entire quadrant would be that of the transmutation ratio before it goes into the primary blade band, seen right here. So starting up this ignition sequence side is small petite clear quartz beads in ignition sequence to be a nice neutral ambient programmable carrier of frequency, as well as a great way to, of course, carry a current through the blade band before it goes into the proper ignition sequence. So it's nice neutral ambient grounded into the transmutation ratio to encourage the neutral ambient energy into the grounding capacity. So the clear quartz seen right here goes straight into rutilated quartz, which is clear quartz with bands of golden rutile in there, which is a titanium mineral found within inside the quartz structure, which works as a massive supercharger of energies. It makes massive intensification of the rest of the current of ignition sequence. Going into lovely specimens of aquamarine, quite the stone of famous antiquity, and of course denoted to be the quintessential cardinal water elemental crystalline structure of the ocean, famously utilized by sailors for many centuries to be a very powerful talisman of oceanic blessing. Aquamarine, being a beryl family cousin to emerald, is a very fantastic, famous, legendary stone of that of the 4th and 5th chakra stimulation, that of cardinal water. So the aspect of speaking from the heart's truth is a highlighted focus, as well as being a very powerful, encouraging aspect of clarity. By having such a distinct, strong resonance of oftentimes 7.5 to 8 out of 10, the hardness scale gives it a very dense, strong atomical oscillation to the blue ray seen right here to make the vibration a little stronger of that particular junction. To be very encouraging to be a cardinal water 4th and 5th junction of precious stone notoriety. So the aspect also, of course, is that the heart is the quantum waypoint to who we are in connection to creation. Then having the clarity of one's heart's truth, being in such a highlighted focus, brings a very, very powerful divine resonance of one's highest truth manifest, quite simply. And so that's why exactly it's very much an oceanic construct with the ocean core here, as well as the white calcite tumbled by the ocean, which I'll get into in due time. Because obviously the prerogative here, the segment of the dissertation, will be the blade band designation dissertation. So the aspect also of the aquamarine seen right here as part of the ignition sequence goes from root-related quartz to intensify that 4th and 5th junction point, then going into golden healer quartz. Golden healer quartz is a very fantastic high heart stimulant of gold white light source alignment emanation. So when it comes to vibration engineering endeavors, having a clean, straight shot to the higher aspects of source creation energy obviously is pretty self-advantageous in theory. To put that connection point in conjunction with aquamarine, which is already a fantastic 4th and 5th stimulant, to have that source high heart also be very well fortified to be in quantum alignment with one's true nature and creation is an aspect of why this blade is of such intentional focus. So going on like so, goes into golden healer quartz, then aquamarine, then root-related quartz, then aquamarine, and so on until the ignition sequence regrounds through the clear quartz here to be a neutral energy ambient carrier into the transmutation ratio to take this excess energy and further ground it through the entire blade scaffolding, which governs the excess overture of the frequency pitch, which is very useful for extremely exotic engines seen like this. It's kind of like the engine section of the construct. They have a very high yield diversity to, of course, encourage the pathway of the excess frequency into a clean, perpetual recirculated loop. So speaking of the engine, I'll go ahead and get through this section because this will be the bulk of the video because it's quite complex in nature. So like mentioned, this entire section with the clear quartz, Lemurian clear quartz, will be the main heart of the construct, which is a nice, large, neutral programmable carrier of the frequency to, most importantly, put the frequency of this apparatus in touch with the conscious self of the wielder, which thereby makes this a platform of consciousness-assisted technology to be wielded in service to creation, God willing. And this is a rather exotic variety that actually has Lemurian clear quartz auxiliary focalizers towards the bottom end, which is not very standard, but since, of course, it has a very oceanic Poseidon trident honoring, it was very appropriate to have more of a obvious trident homage in honor of Poseidon, the ocean deity, obviously. So that's why that's there. So I'll go ahead and discuss more of the intricacies of the main heart before I continue on with the subcategorizations. So the Lemurian clear quartz is an impeccable clear quartz spectrum that is absolutely incredible, with association with old Lemuria, things like that. And so I'll keep it condensed because we have a lot more ground to cover. But the aspect of the neutral clear quartz of Lemurian quartz being seen here, 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 even the auxiliary focalizers, and here, plays a very critical role to honoring the old Lemurian goddess, priestess, archetype energy through subtle intentions for one construct to be very much an embodiment of that ancient, forgotten archetypal truth. It was a big preface of this concept as well for the recipient. So then the aspect of Lemurian quartz, between the spirit quartz being the sub-heart, if you would, there's many different variables like this of the organs of this crystalline entity, but spirit quartz, particularly the cactus quartz with amethyst spectrum, is a very fantastic, obviously amethyst-based 6th, 7th, 8th non-physical chakra stimulant, yet the spirit quartz also works as a very fantastic merger with the higher self. Since it's a symphony of many quartz points on one structure, it's a very dynamic alignment regulator to align one's conscious self to their higher self, which is very, of course, in complementary attunement to the concept of the highest truth focus of this construct. And I might as well say this also. So obviously, as the dissertation continues, All these other frequencies are wired to a primary wire, which would be considered the main vein of the construct, which is the ground, I guess, the main vein, the common ground. All these frequencies yet to be mentioned are grounded into this guy right here to be part of the crystalline organs of this construct to generate vibrational compound interest. So naturally, each of these notarizations are indicative of a frequency pitch that's now part of the entirety of the construct's vibratory output as a whole. So the Spirit Aura Quartz is a fantastic amethyst variety that's very effective for aligning to one's higher divine self as well. And between the Lemurian Quartz, Spirit Quartz, is a lovely specimen of Seraphinite. Seraphinite, named after the Seraphim Archangels, is obviously a very lovely green ray crystal that is actually a full light body stimulant from top to bottom, which is very effective for dismantling any patterns of dis-ease from imprintations or generational traumas, things of that nature. It's very effective, and quite the staple of my life's work is to have that seraphic practical healing emanation be a very powerful frequency healer in practical application for that regard. That's why, of course, that is on display. That will very much be a very prominent centerpiece of this construct as well. Then behind that would be golden Himalayan azeztulite. So obviously it comes from the Himalayas, and it's a very fantastic gold white light high heart source alignment activator as well, in tandem with the golden healer quartz. So many different frequencies will be utilized that basically stimulate the same target range, if you would, of attunement that for further vibrational intensity, vibrational compound interest, such as Himalayan golden azeztulite in a larger chunk down here, to be very complementary to the golden healer quartz source alignment as well, to have the same kind of pathway to the same emanation, yet it's technically two different minerals to have a slightly different oscillation pitch of the emanation that basically, of course, perform very complementary together. So, very nice gold white light source alignment activation. Then right here is Aqua Aura Quartz, which actually looks like a very lovely blue specimen of quartz, but actually is the product of modern alchemy of pressure coating gold straight to a quartz bonded structure, which is pretty cool because it actually comes out a very lovely blue, which gives it a very nice aquamarine energy spectrum in a more synthetic fashion, but yet very in vogue and very famous in this day and age for being one of the most powerful modern alchemized crystals available. That is very effective for, just like aquamarine, being a very powerful fourth and fifth stimulant, yet it has a very, since it's gold technically, also has, of course, a slight fiery energy, yet it is mostly a water blue ray spectrum designated like almost like a synthetic aquamarine. Very neat. The next to that right there will be Sedona Red Rock, seen right here from literally the top of Bell Rock, one of the most famous vortices in the area. So this guy came from the very summit you can climb up to of Bell Rock, seen right here, which is my personal favorite vortice of power in Sedona, which is a very obvious high yield area that almost is like a synthetic pyramid of high iron matrix, which is very effective for high frequency grounding. So even though those right there is pretty cool, the Ruby City. Then next to this would be Emerald. Emerald is the very famous green ray cousin to aquamarine of the same beryl family and same hardness. So even a small dose of emerald is the impeccable green ray heart chakra stimulant of abundance that's quite famous through thousands of years of esoteric tradition. So obviously pretty legendary. Then mixed to that would be Ruby and Zoisite. Zoisite, the green, is a fantastic heart-mind coherent stimulant, yet the ruby in there also makes for a very fantastic root chakra stimulant of literally the most famous red ray crystal in the mineral kingdom of precious notoriety would be ruby. So the aspect of that powerful dynamic heart-mind coherence and is a very, very, very fruitful, successful frequency of one's highest truth grounded into reality through heart-mind coherence. So it's a very, very amazing stone. Then behind the emerald is another master healer I employ quite frequently of star argonite. Star argonite, much like seraphinite, actually is its own full light body from top to bottom, and works just like seraphinite to dismantle any patterns of dis-ease that would be dysregulating and impeding a very natural, healthy flow of the light body from top to bottom, and vice versa, but luckily in a very gentle way where it just simply dispels very softly any outmodeled patterns of dysfunction that would be impeding one's dharmic template into full conscious self-manifestation. That'd be this side of the blade face, so I'll go ahead and flip this over. So at the very tip right here is a lovely, amazing specimen of Libyan gold tektite, which is a gold ray vibrational cousin to moldavite that I fondly refer to as goldavite, much like this guy up here. Libyan gold tektite was a classic pharaohic utilized frequency that was actually carved into scarab breastplates for the finery breastplates of the Magi god king of the pharaoh caste of old in ancient Egypt, and was a very sought out magical stone of power for a very good reason. So the aspect of Libyan gold tektite is a very powerful solar plexus and sacrum stimulant of fire energy, yet the golden ray of illumination is so potent it's more like a storm overtone of full light bistimulation in its own right, as well as being a very dynamic, powerful solar plexus enhancement of manifestation, or most importantly, a dharmic accelerant of one's sovereign truth manifested in reality. So that's why it's a very amazing stone of magic. Then right here would be prehnite. Prehnite is a very fantastic green ray, 3rd and 4th chakra stimulant of water and earth to bring a very, very healing influence as well. And it's a very fantastic natural analog frequency to the Klohan of the green ray, Raphael the archangel, in tandem with this frequency. So you can think of that being a more of a analog frequency broadcast attunement to the Raphael force, like a station, if you would, that is very effective for bringing the Raphael force's background frequency of the great healer of the green ray. Then, right next to the Libyan gold tektite is a bolt of fulgurite, which is actually petrified lightning that struck sand, carrying literally the energy of lightning in a crystal, which is very powerful dynamic stuff that's obviously lightning mimicked, which is a very powerful dynamic, intensive light bisement as well, from top to bottom, of full Kundalini activation, the whole thing, as well as a very powerful manifestation aid that was traditionally utilized as a spirit tool by First Nation people of medicine and shamans, as a very powerful accelerant to one's intention and prayers for the spaces, places, and beings under the jurisdiction as people of medicine or magic. So having a little dose of that goes a long way of intensifying the entire overture of the pitch. Then next to that is a very dynamic special piece of zincite in the blue ray, which is actually a little rarer than typical thought of gold and orange zincite. So this is a very fortuitous find, particularly for a blue ray concentrated construct. So zincite is the most dynamic, explosive activation of the root, sacrum, and solar plexus, virtually unrivaled in the mineral kingdom, I would dare say. And I traditionally use it very sparingly, with plenty of contingencies in mind to get the most out of it, because otherwise it could be rather volatile and intense, like moldavite, in its growth potentiality. So the aspect of the blue zincite is quite special, is that it's very complementary to being a blue ray, 5th chakra stimulant of extremely high fire, which is pretty rare in the mineral kingdom besides blue topaz, to have a fire elemental extreme 5th chakra stimulant that can burn off false self matrices, basically. So a very special component right there. Underneath this right here would be a nice bolt of tourmalated quartz. This is actually quartzite, which is quartz and calcite mixed together, makes a nice clearing energy, with bolts of black tourmaline in the structure naturally. Black tourmaline, just like the transmutation ratio of smooth quartz, is a very famous black ray grounder of negativity into positivity in a lot of ways, and a very powerful psychic protection agent. Then on top of that right there of the tourmalated quartz would be infinitite. Infinitite is a very special variety of serpentine that comes from South Africa that, just like serpentine, is a very dramatic serpentine kundalini activator, but yet infinitite is quite special as that it has a certain aspect of frequency alignment that actually works to decrystallize habitual stagnant patterns that would cause any impediments light body as well, that gives it a very special metaphysical connotation of quickly clearing any outmodeled patterns from the root chakra, the sacrum, solar plexus, the heart chakra. You get the idea. Any aspects of divisitory nature that be stored in the system gets rapidly cleared, as well as this guy makes for a fantastic vibrational insulation device to be another etheric shield, if you would. To maintain equilibrium in the field, as well as to mitigate that frazzled feeling that many highly intuitive light workers would feel under certain frequency duress, to put it lightly. Then right here is a nice piece of black tektite, which is a product of nickel meteorite impacting the sand, which is literally extraterrestrial space space rock obsidian that carries a very nice jolt of energy from the extraterrestrial entry into the Earth plane right here. So luckily it's a black gray stone, so this is quite prolifically utilized in my work as well for this distinct purpose, to be a very powerful black gray ground up vibrational stimulant that activates the entire chakra column, but like a black gray crystal close to the Earth stars, is an entire foundational vibrational threshold for, most importantly, the bottom up to keep a continuity sense of grounding. Oh, my paperweight for my paperweight for the 6-year got a little dismembered there. Anyhow, so that's the aspect too. Of course, raising the vibratory threshold of the entire device from the ground up is quite critical and very practical and useful. So then right here is a lovely specimen of pink rose quartz, a very common high heart stimulant, thank goodness, in the world. That's very much pink ray love. Then a larger dose of blue lace agate seen right here is the quintessential water elemental stabilizer of the 5th chakra, which is very advantageous for the heavy blue ray stimulation, of course, to have a nice stabilization to go along with that. Then right here is a lovely specimen of chaurite, which is a very amazing violet ray dharmic accelerant of the 6th, 7th, to be expected with violet spectrums. Yet it has its own calcite and dendric inclusions, which means that the black dendric inside the matrix seen right here also is a very powerful Earth star stimulant. And the calcite makes for a nice clearing capacity in conjunction. So this is quite simply a very effective violet ray dharmic accelerant to stimulate the Earth star and the soul star, vice versa I meant, soul star and Earth star, to provide a very powerful high frequency induction that's luckily grounded by itself without requiring excessive contingencies to get the most out of it. And then I'll go discuss this guy last because it gets quite meta to summarize the entire engine. So I'll go ahead and discuss the Lemurian focalizers. So seen like right here, which oftentimes I usually work my way up here to discuss the focalizers, but in this case, since it has engine-mounted focalizers seen right here, you can think of this focus of energy of these clear quartz being grounded into the primary wire, captivating the energy of the figure 8 and then giving it a sharper focus, which of course then gives it more of a back-end focus as well as this side, more like a dorje in that regard actually. So that's why those Lemurian clear quartz work as neutral ambient accelerators to actually bring an excess focus of the energy towards the bottom of the engine going this way, while these guys, of course, are focusing more of the business end of the construct, to put it kind of funny. Then, right here, terminated to the backside of these Lemurian clear quartz for a neutral focus would be 2 Shiva lingams. So Shiva, of course, is famously seen wielding a trident as well, which is very, very appropriate for both Poseidon and Shiva to have one archetypal structure together in this regard. So the Shiva lingam is quite the amazing earth, fire, water, and wind, thereby containing the unified field of the traditional Lakota medicine wheel 4 elements of the terrestrial realm of extreme full pranic activation, which is a very useful high-frequency fertility device that is very good for product generation, as well as just general amazing, impeccable, harmonious vibes, as well as an attunement to Shiva, the great deity that doesn't need much introduction. Anyhow, then moving on to last but not least, make sure I talk about everything else first. Okay, so the very last component that I will discuss right now is a very special, important piece that gets very far out in metaphysical to discuss. It gets pretty intensive, but I do my best to keep it coherent and concise for this segment of these videos, for it is quite critical. That of smoky celestial quartz. So much like smoky quartz, well employed so far, it makes for a great grounding agent by itself naturally, but the harmonic structure of how the crystal grows in resonance with the human auric field is quite fascinating, quite amazing and dynamic, and it's become an absolute staple in particularly lightblade wands. The structure of celestial works as an auto-regulated resonance generator that also works in perfect tandem with the conscious self of whoever is wielding it, that also basically is very reactive to the requirements of the wielder, so to speak, in any given situation. Where it gets quite meta is the aspect also is works like a dimmer switch or a surge protector to ensure the termination of the entire vibratory wavelength output is in perfect flux and comfort to the wielder at all times, even in various situations. So it's a very dynamic and quite to keep linear, consolidated, and concise, obviously quite the endeavor to do so with such a complex subject of celestial quartz. But the aspect of what's important here is it works as a very powerful surge protector to ensure the frequency pitch is always in a well-governed, comfortable state to ground the excess energy as required by the wielder. I think I said that 3 times now as I discuss this section. But the aspect also, it works to ensure that the comfortability and the frequency alignment, because even the primary designator of this device who commissioned this, of course, it can resonate to her pitch a certain way, but if someone else held it, this guy would actually make a whole different auto reaction to the higher self blueprint of someone else wielding it, for example. It gets quite complex, to put it lightly. So that, of course, plays a great contingency for all these frequencies to ensure they're all very much in equilibrium is the concept there. And that'd be that. Okay, that'd be the entire engine section discussed. So like I mentioned before, the transmutation ratio of this blade band seen under the leather right here contains up to here. And before I get any further, the aspect of leather is far more than aesthetic. So the aspect of leather is, for many purposes, more than just a completion feature, but it's also a blue ray color therapy resonance, be very fortifying to the 5th chakra through the vibratory output, obviously. And then the aspect of it being an insulator to further condense the energy as it runs its pathways through the entire construct is to insulate the frequency, as well as being, I guess, aesthetically pleasing finishing construct as well. But oftentimes when it comes to my work, it's aesthetics and artistic capacities are secondary to vibratory output potentiality. Anyway, moving on. So this right here is what I refer to as the thumb engagement, seen like so, which is designed to engage the thumb like this, while the index finger has a nice nook on the clear core speed neutral resonance to, of course, engage the construct. So I'll go ahead and utilize the Ark of the Covenant to be a good paperweight if it behaves. I guess I have my backup of the book for this part of the dissertation. Okay, here we go. So the thumb engagement is its own little subroutine designed to engage the thumb. And the very core of this little thumb engagement is actually oceanic calcite that was tumbled by the ocean. So I guess I'll describe this in one shot to save some time. But right here and here are both specimens of oceanic tumbled calcite. So white calcite is a tremendously underrated frequency mineral kingdom, a full 7-ray spectrum clear of any stagnancies through the fire elemental range. But the aspect that makes this truly remarkable and noteworthy is the aspect of it. This particular calcite has been literally tumbled by the ocean for hundreds of years, perhaps. Literally, God knows the answer to that truth. But the point is that an indelible mark of what made the stone shaped was that of the oceanic waves of the ebb and flow, which basically leaves that intrinsic imprintation of oceanic clearing energy imbued into this crystal, which makes for a great engagement for a very oceanic construct. So then the aspect also having the green ray wonder of Mineral Kingdom, moldavite, seen right here in the thumb engagement, gives it a very powerful boost through the entire system. So moldavite should not be much introduction for any crystal enthusiast, but quite simply it is a great green storm elemental heart chakra stimulant of virtually unsurpassed vibrational momentum towards one's connection to creation, which can be rather volatile on the false self matrix. But so that's why, of course, on social media platforms like TikTok and whatnot, it's become rather famous or infamous, if you would, of being a very dramatic, powerful stone of magic that has changed people's lives. But the aspect also, of course, is that moldavite heart's connection is very rough on the false self matricy that would be impeding one's true connection to the dharmic template in creation. So for the spiritual aspirant, it's quite the amazing vibrational dose of the swift kick in the pants towards one's destiny, so to speak, with synchronicities, magic, you name it. So obviously that's why that's there. And even a small dose terminated to this whole primary wire goes a very long way for vibrational compound interest. And to further augment the blue-ray capacity of this lateral band seen around this power pack would be the famous blue lapis lazuli. Lapis lazuli is a very famous crystalline structure of ancient Egypt as well, being that of a tremendous 5th and 6th chakra stimulant of wind elemental concentration, and was known as the Stone of Isis, which is Quite literally a favorite of millions for thousands of years for very good reason, and it's classic stone of one's highest truth manifested, so that's very complementary to the primary focus of the fourth and fifth stimulation, with the fifth and sixth induction of a more of a concentrated focus around the Moldavite to encourage one's highest truth be very, very stimulated into the conscious self-overlap. And before I go any further up here, I'm going to go ahead and circle back to this lateral band, which I omitted. I was going to save for later, but I changed my mind mid-video. So the aspect also, speaking of Blu-ray, this is why I changed my mind, to have more of a conceptual context for the entire dissertation at this point, is to have the extreme fourth and fifth water elemental stimulation of the aquamarine be the highlight focus. Then, of course, the secondary would be the lapis concentration of fifth and sixth of classic Egyptian utilization of magic. Then this back here will be another dose of the fifth chakra stimulation with a little bit of an interesting exotic petersite seen right here. So clear quartz will be a nice neutral ambient accelerant of this lateral band. Going into blue lace agate once again, like the guy I mentioned back here a while back. Blue lace agate is the quintessential stabilization of the fifth chakra. Jaspers and agates, for that matter, in the mineral kingdom, are the most stable vibratory outputs of their color range and elemental correspondence. So having the overture of a further stabilization of the fifth chakra is obviously of the essence for maximum efficiency here. Then clear quartz, then going into blue petersite, which is basically tiger's eye psychotic cousin that is of almost the same family, but is also known as the tempest stone. Petersite is very intense, stimulating stuff that I utilize quite sparingly as well, because it could be very, dismantling of the old self patterns, because it's such a powerful dynamic. Tempest stone is another name they gave it very appropriately. And it's a very powerful third eye, third chakra, sixth chakra, third chakra stimulant of very high dynamic nature that is very powerful for activating psychic gifts at a very rapid rate, as well as being a very powerful root chakra stimulant that actually works like an etheric lightning rod to intensify the entire overture pitch of the auric field and turn up any aspects of the false self matrix that be basically impeding the optimal flow. So it's not exactly a crystalline ally for the faint of heart. It's quite the ambitious, fearless frequency of dramatic spiritual expansion, which is definitely the prerogative of the recipient of this device. Hence, it's been employed right here. But yes, so it's quite the powerhouse of dynamic energy, of cardinal storm energy, which is very powerful. Then clear quartz, then going into the lovely famous turquoise, just like lapis, another stone that's favored in millions for thousands of years, quite literally prolifically notarized across the world for esoteric beliefs and traditions, but I'll keep it consolidated here. But the aspect of turquoise being a lovely embodiment of the earth, fire, water, and wind elements, which is denoted to the Lakota terrestrial four element directions, will be represented in the fifth chakra focus of turquoise, seen right here, to be an incredible full spectrum alignment of wholeness of the fifth chakra. That is very conducive to pranic generation, one's highest truth and connection to creation. Hence, it's a great auxiliary frequency to have in support role to the primary Blu-ray focus aquamarine. And so, of course, ignites like so, grounds back in, and completes the sequence like so, which would be the blade band down here. Then I'll go ahead and finish out the blade face. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and jump back to something I did omit. So once, of course, this video is fully notarized and taken care of right here, this section right here will have this lovely white leather installed in a very aesthetic fashion, obviously. Like so, to be, like I mentioned about the blue leather, a way to protect all these stones down here, to insulate and condense the excess energy of this entire construct, more like that, to kind of give it a nice idea for description's sake. And of course, the way to have a white ray color therapy resonance frequency, and then of course, kind of like a joke I make about hood scoops, these prominent badgings will be installed on top of this of both the clear quartz neutral resonance of the, most importantly, with the flower of life embossed on top of it, which is a fundamental sacred geometric pattern, that of the building blocks of creation. I'm not going to get further into that because, yeah, this is already looking long enough. That's the point right there, having nice dose of the sacred geometric patterning. Then on the other side will be the installation of this trident, seen right here, to be a very great homage to both Poseidon and Shiva, which is two fantastic stone birds with one big stone, basically. So that'd be that. So that's, of course, why that is there, and that will be, of course, attended to by the time this is notarized. All right, get that guy back off for now. Then I'll pick up right where I left off with the blade face. So this right here is a very fantastic specialty component of the love currency, commissioned into existence by the lovely Wizard of Sedona, Mr. Stephen Ross. So, on one side of the coin it says, with love, in love, and through love. And of course, lesscomplicated.net, and that's trademarked. But I have rights because I do a lot of work. I've had the privilege of augmenting many of these coins into vibratory circuits. Then over here, on the back side of the coin, would be a beautiful heart, an open mind, and a humble spirit, to be very much the other side of the coin of a very beautiful archetype set into distribution, so to speak. So, like I mentioned, I've had the great privilege of augmenting many of these constructs for of the Mr. Stephen Ross's love currency platform. That's its own phenomena. So at this point, having this extreme concentration of this much heart's truth is another homage to expand the morphic field of this particular love currency endeavor that's pretty vast. There's many dozens at this point of different renditions of different frequencies around the love currency at this point that are out doing the voodoo they do. Okay, that's enough of that. So on both sides, of course, it's as aesthetically as possible, as well as symmetrical as possible, is the two Larimars seen right here. So Larimar is an amazing newer discovery in the early 80s of a very fantastic blue ray stone of prevalence. I'm sure if it was around in ancient Egyptian times, just like other stones of Egypt, like lapis and aquamarine, Amazonite, and as well as other frequencies like that, as well as turquoise, this would be definitely a famous stone of antiquity if it was discovered sooner in creation. But I'm very confident in that because it's a very beautiful, amazing oceanic frequency. So found in Dominican Republic, Larimar, a lovely blue crystal, is a great 5th and 6th chakra stimulant that is very effective for actually, surprisingly, embodying the energies of fire and water, bringing equilibrium between those polar opposites in the elemental spectrum, which is very, very cool. As well as it's a very fantastic goddess frequency stimulant, as well as a very powerful voice projector, actually. So it's a great stone for singers or teachers, for that matter, to have a very clear, long projection of the voice, if you would. So that's why the Larim also, not to mention, it's also called the Dolphin Stone. It is the cardinal ocean stone, in my opinion, besides aquamarine, which has great antiquity of tremendous amounts of faith and belief and fame behind this frequency of the ocean. So it's definitely another oceanic stone that's quite amazing. Then at the very tip, another very special blue ray specimen is aquatine calcite or Lemurian blue onyx. So it's a very fascinating combination of kind of an onyx and calcite combination, which I do love onyx quite a bit for its capacity to consolidate and condense energy. So the blue ray focus of the calcite onyx of Lemurian connotation is very advantageous for this entire platform as well, that of being a relatively big homage, nod to the Lemurian high priestess archetype in one vibratory construct would be the premier goal here. So the aspect of bringing that stabilized, condensed focus of the blue ray of clearing capacity is also very amazingly advantageous toward the big goal of Nymphaea's designated heavy oceanic on-ring. Okay, and also already mentioned, in termination with that would be the oceanic calcite that Mother Ocean tumbled herself before they end up in this construct, which is quite spectacular, quite fabulous. Alrighty, so last but not least, I oftentimes save this part for very last to the capstone of dissertation. So the white stones seen right here, crystals, would be selenite that was hewn into shape with the pine wooden core that was tumbled by the ocean. So I saved the selenites for last, which is very comprehensive capstone for this entire 39.5-minute dissertation thus far. Selenite by itself is a very fantastic 6th, 7th, 8th non-physical chakra stimulant all the way back to one's highest self Godhead in a very clean way manner. So it's an impeccable two-way connection point to one's conscious self, to one's highest self, which already makes it an amazing frequency. And so with that high frequency induction stimulant, it also works as a great way to burn off stagnant energies from the soul star through the entire system through high frequency divinity transmutation induction. And where it really shines in every given spirit tool is the capacity to take this entire frequency pitch, thus far mentioned, in roughly 40 minutes right now, and take the entire frequency pitch in a closed reactive circuit. It can purify all of these crystals in a dynamic circuit. It can amplify or intensify the entire circuitry seen right here, and perhaps most importantly, bring equilibrium and harmony to the entire vibratory output. So when you have the aspect of this entire crystalline structure being purified, amplified, and then harmonized, that's always the triumphant trifecta of any given spirit tool's functionality, in my humble opinion, to, of course, encourage the magic to be real for the capacity of the liberation of empowerment of one's highest self manifest in a conscious self, quite simply. So that aspect plays a very critical role to be very dynamic in the whole construct as well. So almost last, not quite least though, but the dynamic range of the kyanites are quite meta to discuss as well. So I'll go ahead and start off with the black kyanite. So before I continue on the kyanites are the most rapid transfers of energy in the mineral kingdom. So rapid, in fact, that literally stagnant energies cannot maintain in their field and corrupt the crystalline structure, which means they never actually need authentic purification by themselves, which is very cool. And also, with those rapid transfers of energy so quickly buffering, that often I'll go ahead and get into how it's relatable to the blade right now. So the aspect of black kyanite is an absolute staple to be a very rapid black-gray grounder of energy into the earth very quickly. I would say unsurpassed in the mineral kingdom based on its reactive rate to ensure the capacity of energy of channeling of the energy system always is encouraged into the earth at the quickest rate possible, which is essential for having a surge protector to ensure the excess frequency of this device in flux is always grounding very quickly. Then also, of course, that also encourages the magic to become more real as well. Then orange kyanite, a very powerful orange ray stimulant that is very effective for the sacrum chakra's highest configuration absolute possible. Then green kyanite, a very powerful heart chakra connector point, a very quick connection points as well. Then the blue kyanite's a very quick stimulant of the sixth chakra, third eye, or the left and right hemispheres, to align together, so to speak, to kind of mitigate and bridge past cross friction that would happen that actually naturally, of course, blocks the third eye, which is basically the human condition for the most part. So the big aspect, too, of the four of them combined is most dynamic transference range, which also works as its own etheric Teflon generator to ensure the energy is rerouting and buffering so quickly that lower frequencies of the bombardment may be very discouraged to actually maintain in such a reactive, quick, dynamic field, kind of like you can think of Aaron's breastplate, so to speak, which has designed to be a diffuser of energy from the arc reactor. That's why this is a great paperweight to, of course, keep the thing flat. Most importantly, then the reference. That's actually how this guy got promoted to this job, because this whimsical stick figure is it gets dog-eared very easily. That's why it's here. But sometimes it's great to make a great reference to a biblical monument of vibrational engineering, if you guys could say. And so enough digression there. But the aspect of what's important once again is that it makes such a powerful dynamic shift of energy that'd be very hard for weaker frequencies to transfer, as well as the aspect too of it being a very great way to take the focus of the energy and actually make rapid transfers to my buddies outside the trees, for example, to align at a very, very quick rapid rate. It's a big prerogative of kyanite as well to actually make the magic real, to actually generate the frequency transfer. So it actually becomes a tangibility, so to speak. So that aspect right there. And to further encourage that projection right there will be the capstone absolute of this construct of the focalizer seen right here. Starting off with titanium aura quartz, which is an amazing modern alchemical achievement, in my humble opinion, that's quite prolifically utilized for a good purpose. It's taking titanium and pressure coating a clear quartz structure. To have that titanium frequency on a quartz bonded structure is a very powerful full light basement as well, from top to bottom, and fortifies a very strengthened field that is very, very dynamic and very powerful, insulating and protective and shielding to the entire auric field when in play. Then having that frequency backed, basically terminated into the Lemurian clear quartz once again to be the absolute neutral amplification projection, which basically, of course, will be like the business end of the construct right there, to be the neutral ambience, which are, of course, grounded into the primary wire so that the auxiliary energy of this entire construct recirculating gets a focus right here in tandem with the consciousness of the wielder who is running the current or prayers into it before the conceptual discharge of the energy is performed, so to speak. So that'd be that. That'd be a pretty comprehensive dissertation on the lightblade wand named Nymphaea. And the big aspect here, of course, to circle back as an absolute summary, is that it's a very powerfully devoted to the oceanic archetypal energies to be that much of a ocean frequency generator in one construct. It's something that, God willing, make Poseidon proud, basically. And, alrighty. Well, that'd be it. 1,000 blessings, and may the force be with us all.